WA6RNG, this K6DUE. Byron, you still on frequency?
K6DUE, this WA6RNG walking mobile. Right, Roy, I'm still here. How have you been?
Oh, just fine, thanks. What are you up to?
I'm taking my constitutional with Betty. Where are you?
You'll never believe it. I'm in Long Beach, aboard the Queen Mary. Seemed like a good day to take the tour.
Break.
Go ahead, Breaker.
Yeah, WA6RNG. This is WA6DAW, Mobile 6. Byron, are you the guy who recorded those radio announcements? The ones describing ham radio.
I'm the guy.
Well, I heard two of them last week. They're terrific.
Well, thanks very much. They've been getting quite a bit of play around the country.
WA6RNG, W6PJX.
Boyne, how are you?
Fine, Byron. Hi, Renee. Hi, Roy.
Break, please.
That's my better half, guys.
What you have here is a typical example of a bunch of friends and acquaintances hamming it up.
Bernie, is there anything you'd like me to stop for on the way home?
These are hams, amateur radio operators. Bernie Abramson is a director of cinematography. His wife, Patty, works for an airline. Renee Tidwell is an engineer. Roy Neal is, of course, NBC's science editor. And Byron Paul is Dick Van Dyke's partner. Which explains how I got involved in a show about ham radio. I've been over at Byron's a lot. And he's usually here in the shack, as he calls it, fooling around with his rig, talking to one of his friends. He's got them all over the world. He's really into this hobby. It looks like fun to me, too. You never know who you're going to hear on this thing.
Okay, John, thank you very much for a nice QSO. See you
That's
later.
familiar voice.
W6RTN, this is W6.
6RO, K6DUE operating. 73. You know, amateur radio is the world's most fascinating hobby. To me, as a science reporter, I try to keep up with the developments in modern technology. But nothing gives me more of a thrill than the achievements of amateur radio. There are ham stations almost everywhere. For example, this one, aboard the Queen Mary, manned daily by members of the Long Beach Amateur Radio Club for the benefit of tourists and visiting hams like me. They even have a museum right next door, filled with radio memorabilia from the ship and from the early days of ham radio. It's hard to believe, but radio's less than 100 years old. It was 1896 when Marconi sent his first messages by wireless. Soon after, imaginative pioneers had built one-tube receivers that could hear signals in those supposedly worthless frequencies that are now all of the broadcast and shortwave bands. And when they listened carefully, this is what they heard. This early spark gap transmitter sent out a radio wave that a good receiver could hear as far as 200 miles away. It was with amateur equipment like this that our sophisticated communications industry got its start. And under the guidance of Hiram Percy Maxim, ham radio got itself organized in 1914 with the founding of the American Radio Relay League here in this house in Hartford, Connecticut. Today, with modern buildings and facilities in Newington, Connecticut, the Arrl is still the focal point of organized amateur activities in the United States. Other countries have their own organizations. The Radio Society of Great Britain serves England's 20,000-plus amateurs from its headquarters in London, where the entire operation is fully computerized. In Tokyo, the Japan Amateur Radio League performs similar functions for the fast-growing ham population in Japan. But no matter where you go, the goal of amateur radio is always the same: communication. This amateur station near Phoenix belongs to a ham named Barry, United States Senator Barry Goldwater.
Hello, Mrs. Martineau. This is an amateur radio station in Arizona, and we have your husband, the captain, on the other end of this hookup. And I'd like to ask you, have you ever talked before by amateur radio?
I sure have.
Oh, you have? Well, that's wonderful. We're always glad to hear that. And you know the magic word over.
Right.
Don't forget it. And the next voice that you hear will be that of Captain Martineau.
Okay.
AI-8 Alpha Hotel. This is AFA-7 UGA, ready to go.
Roger, Robert, and this here is the captain's voice. Hi, over there, and this is Pete, and it's Thursday morning over here on the 27th, and who am I talking to, over?
You're talking to me, honey, and it sounds wonderful to hear your voice. We're just sitting here finishing dinner, and
It gives me a great deal of satisfaction every time I can make a phone patch like this. There's the technical achievement of being able to talk to the other side of the world, but more than that, It's using this ability to help someone stay in touch with family and friends.
I love you so much, and we're so lonesome. Over.
I love you too, darling. Have you got your little friends there, and how are they? Over.
Here's Marcia. Hi, Dad. Over.
Hi, Marcia.
Some hams specialize in relaying messages from Little America. It's a service well appreciated because amateur radio is the only person-to-person link between the Antarctic crew and their families back home.
64 USX Little America. This is W6NAZ, Sherman Oaks, California. I have Mrs. Lyons on the line, and she's very anxious to hear her son's voice, and she has talked on the phone patch before, so we're ready. Over.
W6NAZ. This is KC4USX in Little America. Very, very fine, Lenard. You're coming through great down here today. You're ready to go in just about 5 seconds.
Ham radio is a real morale booster, here and in hundreds of places around the globe. Quite an accomplishment for a bunch of volunteers.
Sometimes you don't need to hear a familiar voice, but just get a message through. That's when hams rely on Morse code, still the most efficient way to communicate. Some amateurs, like Louise here, handle thousands of messages a year, all for other people. Radio teletype is another way hams communicate. David Evans, in his home just outside London, is talking to a friend in Middlesex using his amateur teletype. A person with a speech or hearing problem has no handicap here because with teletype, you let your fingers do the talking. Not that there's anything wrong with just talking. Lots of hams make lots of friends that way.
I'm glad you have everything under control.
And it's nice to know there's always someone there if you need help. April Mell is putting her hobby to work in the St. Jude Hospital Rehab Center.
This is KL7. I visit Anchorage, Alaska. The handle here is Harley, Harley, like the motorcycle. Go ahead, April.
KL7 IZZ WD6 BPT back again. Well, thanks so much for giving us a shout, Harley. You have a great signal down in here today. But let's get the group here to introduce themselves. We're on for radio time today with some of our rehab patients, and they're very eager to say hello to Alaska. So here's the first gentleman. Say hi to Harley.
Harley, hello, in Anchorage, Alaska. And my name is Paul Stream, and I'm from Lorben. I could never say that.
Watch me, and we'll do it together.
Yorba Linda.
Very good. Paul's been undergoing some speech therapy, and this is the second time he's joined us for radio time. That's just super. Okay.
There's no way you can feel isolated or alone when you're in a ham shack.
And she has a little trouble getting out the words she likes to say.
There are hams in virtually every country of the world. On a given day, you might talk to this station in France. Call sign F8RU. Or CR9AJ in the Portuguese colony of Macau, a tiny peninsula off mainland China. Torres is the only ham here and a very popular fellow. Tuning the bands, it's very likely that you'll hear one of the 500,000 or so stations in Japan, the country with more amateurs than any other in the world. Japanese ham stations are every bit as sophisticated as you'd expect them to be. There's a lot of activity at 4U1 ITU in Geneva, Switzerland. This well-known station at the International Telecommunication Union is often operated by visiting amateurs from other countries. And as a permanent record of memorable contacts, hams exchange these QSL cards. Some hams have cards from more than 300 different countries. Here's a card from a ham in Virginia, K4LIB. His name is Arthur Godfrey.
The advancements in amateur radio in the last 10 years really are amazing.
WB3EUN, WB3EJG. Hi, Lynn. Matt and I are riding horseback.
How'd you make out?
They didn't have everything I wanted, but I got a few things, and I got a really good book.
When you compare modern VHF radios
terrific. Well, listen,
to the old Spark...